Right. So, right. We're looking at assessment 1. Right. This is I'm just doing assessment 1's or unit 1's practical, but you'll find that all the info I need for the practical are actually for each one of them as you go on. So I'm just using the first one. So for CHCCSL501A, I think most of you are already on 507B and 502A. So okay. So the documents that's needed. So with every practical, the following documents need to come with you, right? Not necessarily come with you to the practical, but once you hand in your assessment, I need an observation checklist. The observation checklist is normally the one that I use, so prefer that when you come to the practical you've already printed them out too. So you give me the observation checklist. It's always good to actually first of all download the observation checklist and work through it in preparing for your practical, because the checklist is what I go through when I mark you off. So if you sit and you prepare for your practical and you look at your observation checklist, you'll know exactly what I want. It will say body language, it will say eye contact, it will say listening skills, all sorts of things. The good thing about this checklist is it's the same one we use for distance as well as classroom students. So the top part is already done for you. So you'll find that the one that's done for you will be creating the environment, because that's already here. So so you don't need to worry about that. If you give me mostly a day's notice before you do your practical, we can arrange for you for a client or more. Because some practicals we need a few clients. There's one practical where we need 8 people. There's one where we need 2 people. Some of them need 3 people. So so it's not. So don't just show up and say I'm doing my practical today. So that's it. Okay. So that's the observation checklist. So always go through the checklist. The next one is the session notes. So you print out these notes, the notes you bring to the prac, and as you talk to your client, you make notes. But I don't really care about the quality of your handwriting, because some of the notes will be just quickly jot down notes and things like that. But as long as you sit there and you make notes, because these notes I need afterwards too. So when you hand in your reflection, you also hand in your notes. I need to see that you've actually done note taking. Obviously in practice you will develop your own style, your own way of doing things, but for the purpose of this assessment, the notes need to be done with your practical. It needs to be handed in with your reflection. So that's just some important things to know, is it needs to be done. And then try and have them actually completed in a way of answering most of those questions. There are questions. Here and there are questions which you don't really need to answer, which doesn't have an influence on your case. But try and actually hand them in as complete as possible. So I would have, in the past, I get students that only do page 1, then page 2 and 3 is left blank. I can't really accept that. I need all, even if you just write a few words in each block to show me that you've actually reflected on the whole thing while we're taking notes. Client feedback form, just give it to me at the end of the session, and then I will just tick all the boxes. Draw smiley faces or draw very, very sad faces. If your sad face is crying, then you know that it didn't go that well. So on. But client feedback form, it's just getting you used to doing that in practice too. And then your reflection. The reflection is, we'll talk about that soon, but the reflection is quite important. Okay? And the word count is quite important too. So, right. The case study for number 1 is Hannah and the cat. So Hannah and her lovely cat. Story is, it's an old cat. She opened the garage door, cat ran out, cat got killed. Hannah feels she killed the cat. So on approaching this. That is your scenario. It's an interesting scenario. One thing that's definitely unsuccessful for a practical like this is when you go to tell your client, have you ever thought of buying a new cat? Do not give any advice at all. Right, don't go on. Have you thought of doing this? Have you thought of that? Have you thought of joining a club? Have you thought of doing ballet lessons? Have you thought of... Every time you think, have you thought of, you might think you've put it into a question form. That is not true. You are actually giving her advice, okay? Rather say, what do you think you can do because you're so lonely? What do you think you can do to work on these feelings you have about the cat that passed away? Instead of saying, have you thought of, and give them your opinion. So that's just a different approach. The best way to teach yourself, or the best way to be a good counselor, is practice, 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 practice. So practice makes perfect, and that's what you can do, is just practice, even practice on each other. If you're not busy with your assessments, even if you mess up while you're practicing, that's okay, because we are here to learn. Rather make a mistake in class than make a mistake in real life and have a bad influence on someone's life. So that's also when we do the role plays. One of the most important classes to attend. I don't care if you miss all the others, but the one that I really suggest everyone goes to is Role Play on Tuesdays, because that's where we practice. You'll see stuff happening. I will counsel some people. This week I was counselled. Every week we do different things. Sometimes we'll break up in little groups, small groups, and each group will counsel each other. We're just trying to get you to practice and see it in practice, the different techniques and things. Okay, so Hannah and the cat is number one. I think the second scenario is, and you can help me on this one, the lady that... Scenario 2, which is scenario 2. Can you remember scenario 2? Okay, it's but that doesn't matter. But with each assignment, there is a scenario. Some of them have 2 scenarios where you can choose 1 or 2. That will be my privilege to choose which scenario we go. So it's part of the experience, and in practice you don't know what's coming into your room anyway. So be prepared. Okay, so key points for the practical. Number 1 is explain the nature of the counselling service and the contract. So number 1 thing, and if you look at your observation sheet, that's one of the points, is number 1 is explain the nature of the counselling service. So what sort of service do you offer? It's a family service. We do mostly CBT, PCT. We also explain the contract. What's the contract? What does it entail? Counselling sessions are an hour each. They cost about $120 an hour. How do you cancel them? That sort of stuff. So that's in the contract. So in the practical, you explain to your client exactly what it is, and you work through the contract. Number 2 is explain the counselling process. Confirm and modify the client's understanding and expectations of the counselling process. So what you do here is you ask the client, have they been to counselling before? How was your experience? What do you want to get from counselling? What's the purpose of you coming here? That sort of thing. So number 2 is explain the process, confirm and modify the client's understanding. Sometimes they will say, I've never been to counselling before. Then you explain to them. Sometimes they'll say to you, I've been to counselling before when I was at school. So just explain how this is different from those situations. Identify any anxieties or concerns and confirm commitment to the counselling relationship. So that is, you'll ask them, have you been to counselling before? Anything that you don't like about counselling, anything that you're worried about the process. So you identify all those anxieties and you try and address them before your process starts. So this helps you in building rapport with your client. It helps you to get your client to actually understand the process and be more relaxed about it. We also call this, the name for this, like you explain to them what you're going to do to them, how your counseling is going to be, what sort of techniques you're going to use. We call that informed consent. So they when they sign the contract, they consent to what you want to explain to them, what you're going to do to them. But they've already informed, you have informed them about what you're going to do. So it's called informed consent. Then you explain to them the structured approach to counseling by answering the points in your checklist. They're the numbers, question 11, 12, 13, and 14 on your checklist. So that's what's important for you to check your checklist out before you go to the practical. You'll also find that the checklists change according to the practice you're doing. As we add new skills, as we did learn new skills, these things change and become part of the thing. All right, demonstrate and establish the nature of the helping relationship. So what's the nature of your relationship? What's the purpose of what you're going to do? So you explain that all. So in points 15 to 20 of your checklist, it's explaining those sort of things that you need to do for your client. And then the conclusion of the session. How do you conclude your session? It's important that you summarize. So you come, you say, all right, so just in summary, you talk to me about the fact that you came to me, you feel responsible for the cat that came out of the garage and got killed, and we talked about this and this goal, how you're going to talk to your parents about this, how you're going to address this situation. So you just make like a summary, and then in the summary also you normally, what I normally would do with my real clients is I'll say next time, do you want to work on this and this point next time we come together? So it gives your client also an idea of what's going to happen next time when they come, and then you also make an appointment for the next session. So that's all that's happening. So you will find that all the key points are in the question, in the assessment, the mark sheet that's with each assessment. Okay, then your session notes. The things that you need to write in your notes, and that's why they're all divided into little sections, and that's why I say that each section needs to be filled in. So first of all, the first part of your session notes is the nature of the presenting problem. So you'll see when you look at your session notes, I already printed out for you the nature of the problem. So Hannah came to see me because a cat died, and the nature of the problem is she feels guilty, she feels sad, she feels lonely. So those are the presenting issues. So you always write your presenting issues there. The second one would be your client's goals and desired outcome. So what do you want to achieve from this? So when you speak to Hannah and you say, Hannah, no, you've come to counseling, but what do you want to achieve with this counseling session? What do you want from me? So she would say probably like, I would like to know what to do about feeling guilty. I haven't told my parents what happened. They still think that the cat's missing. They think the cat ran away. Meanwhile, I buried the cat in the garden. So I need to sort of find a way of how I'm going to speak to my parents about this. So what's your goals, what's your desired outcome? So that's the second part. So things that you and your client decide on, you fill out in that one. Client's strength and resources. So what's your strengths? So in this process of getting over the sadness, what can you do? So maybe Hannah says, you know, the only person that I can really trust in this matter would be my father. So I'll speak to my dad about it. So speaking to my dad is a strength for her. The other thing is, he's also your resources. So he's the one that might be there to help her out, to help her speak to the mother, who might be the one that's really influenced by the death of the cat, that sort of thing. So in your discussion, you write those things down. What are the strengths? What's the resources? Then the next part would be interventions. including reasons for. So interventions, I'm not talking about, when we talk about intervention, the first thing we think about is the TV program intervention, people sitting around, and you're an alcoholic and you have to go into the bus today and go to rehab today, otherwise we're never going to speak to you again and we don't love you anymore, that sort of stuff. You know, the TV show, that's intervention. No, not in this case. We call, which is quite funny, is our methodologies, our CBT, PCT, narrative, those ones, they're called modules, methods, they're also called interventions. So what you can say is, with Hannah, I'm going to use CBT because I need to challenge her belief system, because she believes that she actually killed the cat, and she believes that if she talks to her mother about the cat now, her mother will disown her. So we need to look at the challenging, we need to challenge her belief system. So I'd say my intervention, my reason is, I'm using CBT, and the reason is because I need to challenge the way that she's thinking, right? So that's why that section is in your notes. Right, then referrals. For the first few pracs, I'd say prac 1 and 2, there's no referrals, so you just don't leave it open, just say no referrals. Or you can just write that I don't need to refer my client to someone else at this stage. Observations, what do you see? First session she comes, she's agitated, she's irritated, she's crying, she's teary, she's sad, whatever, she's worried, she's anxious. So all your observations, you write there. She comes, her nails are dirty, full of sand. Maybe the sand is because of her burying the cat in the garden. Whatever is your observation. So that's everything that you observe about your client. That's why body language is important. She's distracted, whatever. Everything that you observe about your client, you write there. Client's developmental status. So if you speak to the client and you realize that if you look at the developmental status, lifespan, that sort of stuff, you can say elderly person, she's very anxious, so I would say that security might be an issue to her in growing up. When we look at Erikson or Maslow or Piaget or all those people, who does theories on development of people and stages of development. So that's stuff that goes in there. So when you've got your client, you can look into those things. So make sure you're brushed up a bit on Erikson, Piaget. I prefer Erikson and Maslow. I'm not a fan of Piaget, and I'm definitely not a fan of our friend Dr. Freud. Some of Freud's stuff is great. The ID, that stuff is a bit plain weird. So focus on the easier stuff. You don't need to go to the weird and wonderful world of counselling. You can stay to the nice and normal general stuff to help our people. And the more plain our language with our clients, the better they understand us and the better they feel that they can be helped. So, right. Another part of your notes would be forward planning. And that's what I say is, you talk to your client, when you do your summary, you'll say, next time you come, we're going to talk about, what do you want to work on next time? So next time I want to work on how to work on the fact that I'm going to tell my mother about the cat that died. So forward planning goes into there. If there's anything else you want to say, leave that. Final session, if it's relevant, there's a prac that's got 3 sessions. So this will be the final one, and the bottom part is just where you sign it. So it's just a simple sort of form. It also helps you to be aware of your client more, to be aware of what's happening in your client and for your client when you look at your client's body language, style, the way they operate. So that's all just part of the notes. So it's a bit more to it than just the notes. So there's some work that you need to do in the process to fill out these notes. So that's part of the session I have to look at these notes. So, and I have to make sure that they are actually proper notes. So in the past, you just had to tick all the boxes, and there you go. Now we've got all the notes. We need the whole process with you to do this. So next point is your reflection. And I've got it in big letters and numbers there for you, which is 1,000 words. It says 500 to 1,000 words. Just forget about the 500. Just go straight to the 1,000. It's just it just gets you used to actually being more observant. You've got your case notes anyway, so you can use your case notes. Plus, there's some questions. If you look at your assignment, there's always, it's about 10 to 15 questions on which you need to reflect on. That's one part of being a counselor, is reflection. Reflection becomes part of your life. Because after each session in real life, you have to sit and you have to reflect about your client. I'm not talking about case notes, I'm talking about reflection. What did you experience? What's happening to you? When you go to professional clinical supervision, the first thing your supervisor will ask you is, so what's happening for you? What happened while you were working with the client? What did you experience? So that's all part of the reflection process. So I would like to teach you as soon as possible to get into this reflection thing. So skip the 500 words, go straight for the 1,000. Get yourself into the process of reflecting. Okay? And the help is the questions. In real life, you don't have those questions. So make sure that you've got, let's say you've got 10 questions there, 1,000 words, that's easy. 100 words per question. So just divide it up. If there's 15 questions, even less words per question. So just look at your questions, and it's just a way of dividing it up and making it easy for you, and just get into the process of actually writing and reflecting on your client and their client status. So 1,000 words. Reflect on, other words. The sentences. And so number one is, how well did I explain to the client their rights as a client of my counselling service? So that's the questions for number one. So how well did I explain it? So you can say, I think I explained it well because I did this and this and this and this and this and this. So don't say, I think I did it well. Just say why you did it well. So that's part of making up your, it's 100 words on that topic. So each one of them, that's just some of the questions that you need to answer. How was I able to affirm the significance of what the client said? So that's body language, that's micro skills, that's all sort of stuff. So there's all the questions are in your assignment. So they're all there for you to actually use. And then client feedback form, little smiley face form at the end, and clients just write on them and tell you how they feel and how they love you and how amazing you are, and if your client feels that the session didn't go according to what they wanted, they will say it was terrible, you have no clue what you're doing, that sort of stuff. The idea of that is for us, for our own benefit, to see if we're doing something right or wrong or whatever. So it's just important to have it in. And then the last part of this is this one, and this is the most important one. Keep calm and relax, and just breathe. Okay, breathing is important. We need oxygen. So when you go there, relax. Okay. One of the key things for any practice, not only for practice but for counselling in real life, is our micro skills. Body language, open questions, closed questions, paraphrasing. Peter Janetsky, who's a real mentor for me in this area, he always says the following. He says, when in doubt, paraphrase. So when you're counseling someone and you get stuck and you don't know what to do, just repeat the last thing that they said. So you said that you came home, you opened the garage door, and the cat ran out. And then the client will take that cue again and says, yes, and this and this and this. If you feel stuck, and you don't know what question to ask, it's not about the questions, it's about just holding the environment, holding the moment, holding the whatever is happening, just holding it. And one way to do that is just to reflect, to paraphrase, to summarize. And also very, very important thing to do with your clients is silence is also good. It's also good. So silence, a lot of healing happens in silence. So we don't always have to speak. So if your client's quiet for a moment, let them be quiet for a moment. Sometimes what Peter Janitsky does a lot is, if you say something like this, let's say something like, I've got an issue with this person, and then he would say, okay, now hold that issue for a moment. Just hold it. You said you're so angry at your sister. So just hold that, I'm so angry at my sister, and just think about it. I'm so angry at my sister. He would sometimes say to you, say it again. I'm angry at my sister. Repeat that a few times. I'm angry at my sister. There's more than one way to do this stuff. So just remember, go with the flow. And if you're in doubt, just paraphrase. And another important thing I learned from Peter is trust the process. Trust the process. And I think that's something you'll hear me say a lot, is trust the process. So, and that's all I need to say about Prac 1's, Assessment 1's Prac. So I'm switching off the camera now, and then any questions you have, let's just run through them to make sure that you're prepared for this Prac.